Welcome back to the Growth Hack Franchise Marketing Unleashed. I'm Marcus Slater, founder of AdCloud, where we help franchise brands grow with smarter strategy and fewer shortcuts. Today, we're putting a big assumption to test. Does faster follow-up always mean better results? The industry worships speed to lead, instant replies, zero delays, automation on autopilot. But we wanted to know what happens if you slow it down slightly. So we did. We added a 2-minute delay to AI responses across 20 studios. There's no gimmicks, just a simple change. We tracked reply rates, booking rates, and how human those messages felt to the lead. And what did we learn? Speed still matters, but not at the expense of trust. And I think that's a big point. And we're going to dive into that today. And as always, we have Mackenzie, our marketing director, here with me.
So, Marcus, what made you just kind of wake up one morning and say, let's slow this down and see what breaks?
I think naturally I'm always looking for the next great test. Really, the next small test. We live in a world where testing is everything. It's easy to get to a place where we're like, everything's performing really well. You hear the old saying, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm a little bit more of a believer of if it's not broke, try to break it and just see, like, could it be better? Just because we're converting 80% doesn't mean we can't convert at 85%. And I think many people would take 80 and be like, okay, we're good. Don't touch anything. Don't test anything else. Just leave it and let it run. We always want to make things a little bit more human-esque, even though I think that society now has an expectancy that there's going to be a play of AI in some form or fashion in communication, whether that's with brands like ours or it's in retail world, whatever those things may be. But it really was just more so like, hey, can we get 2, 3, 7, 10, 15% more conversion if we slow it down a little bit and make it seem just a little bit less computerized? And it seemed to help. Again, I think it's always just poking and prodding and saying, I think I know where it's going to go, but what if? What if? And I think this was an aha moment that we had when we ran into this test.
So, I know you had to kind of have something in your mind of what you thought was going to happen when you did this. What was your thought process there? Of how did you expect everything to go?
Originally, I thought that we would see a decline because when you market on social, it's such an impulse decision. You're scrolling the feeds, you're looking at your friend's stuff, you see this ad, and impulsively you're like, oh, let me go do that. But you're moving on to other things really quickly. So I originally thought this is probably a bad play on the social side, maybe better for Google, but we tested it anyway. Sometimes you may lose a few dollars, but it's worth knowing instead of looking back 12 months and being like, oh, I wonder if we should have tested that. I wonder if we should have done this differently. So my original thought was that this probably isn't going to do really well, but let's split off a little bit of the studios and just see what happens. On Google, I thought it might do better simply because there's an intent. You have intent to do this, you've signed up, you're more likely to do it. You're probably not shopping out as much, so you don't mind a little bit of delay on that front. And I was proven wrong in both. Really, Google proven right, and I think social proven wrong, which is great. Like I said, when you get to the stage that we're at, every percent matters. How do you get from 80 to 81 to 83 and find those little loopholes, especially in retargeting, which is where I think the human factor comes a little bit more into play because some of these people have already been through that initial funnel, and finding ways to re-engage them become a little bit harder on that follow-up. But yeah, initially I thought it would flunk out on social and probably do okay on Google. In this specific test, we didn't change the verbiage. We just delayed. It was solely like, hey, does it seem more realistic? Does it convert better if our response is that, hey, I submit the form and within 3 milliseconds? Because naturally, we all know for the most part, that's unrealistic. Now, there are some massive sales teams that can do that really quickly and call you and do those things. But we found that it increased interaction rate. People seem to think that it was more so a human, and we track all of the conversations that happen with our AI, but they would converse as if they were actually talking to Sarah or whoever is pitched through it. But we saw about I believe it was about a 6% increase in engagement and about a 5% increase in conversion. And you may look at it and say, oh, 5% is not much. Over 12 months, it's a lot. When you're generating 300 leads a month and et cetera, and you look long term, those little percentages add up. But really going back to like the conversation starters, when we see 6, 7, 8% increase in engagement, people actually like responding to that text, that tells us that they're feeling a little bit more of a connection. They've submitted that form, they've moved through, and then it's, oh, hey, here's a reminder. If you send it really quickly, they're just still like in that crazy mode mentality, or maybe they're still scrolling social and they just don't want to be distracted by your text message at that point. So delaying it can help. Naturally, you have multi-day follow-up, so you hope that some of those will catch it. But our biggest thing is like starting that conversation, getting them to at least engage with that first text message that goes out. And that I think was a big thing for us of figuring out, okay, we have good conversion rates for those who engage to booking appointments, but how do we increase that initial engagement? How do we get more people to start to ask questions and start the booking process? Again, it was really great to see those different things. And I think a lot of it just goes back to like, there's no test too small. There's really no test that's not worth it, unless it's completely like array of your business model. But looking at every minor detail and saying, okay, how do we pick this apart and create these micro tests to really dive in and figure out where the missing gap is, because that could become your amplifier. Because if we increase engagement 7%, and we're generating, let's just say 10% for sake of easy numbers, and we're generating 5,000 leads a year, that's arguably 500 more opportunities that we're getting to be able to book in. That's a lot of additional revenue over a year's time. And so that's where I think people have to start, business owners have to start looking at, and marketers have to start really looking at those little things, especially as people are getting a little bit more just used to like marketing flows and going through those. We have to become really good and smart on how we communicate and how we connect with the end user, and rely a lot on AI, but still don't miss out on the opportunities to create some type of humanistic interaction in there.
And obviously, AI has been around for a minute now. Most people are used to interacting with these sort of bot feeling text message exchanges. Do you think now there's starting to become a shift where people are wanting to go back to a human interaction? Do you think that shift is starting to happen?
I don't think so. I think people like the convenience of it. I think they actually expect the convenience of it. I know I do. And it's not just because it's the business I'm in, but I think that for me, it's more of I want to be able to do this when it's convenient for me, and I don't want to have to wait on somebody else. I don't want to have to wait on your open hours. I think our last benchmark, 60 to 70% of most of our conversion and bookings come after hours. And so I don't want to have to wait until you open to be able to service me and get me booked and et cetera. Look at the barbershop world, right? There were so many times. Now, once you land a good barber, you just make it work, especially like the mom and pop barbershops. They didn't have apps where you were booking. You had to text them and be like, hey, can I get in tomorrow at 10 o'clock? But obviously, you don't want to be texting them at midnight. But like now you can go, and my barber for the longest time didn't have that. It didn't have an app. You couldn't go and book. But now I can. I don't have to ask his permission. Like I can just go and find a slot that works for me. And if I need to reschedule, I can go in and reschedule on my own time when it's convenient. I don't have to run it by. And I think consumers expect that, but I think they expect a little bit of, hey, also, we're still here. It's not all robots, right? It's not all like if you need support, that human part is still here. We make it easily accessible. So again, I think tech and AI and all bots, those are going to continue to be the new way to interact on first touch. Like I said, I think on retargeting and remarketing, there is maybe a little bit more of a want for human interaction and explanation and engagement there. But I think on first touch, I think society expects majority, because now most people are using the AI callers now, right? It's now you're not even talking to a real human over the phone anymore. It's AI. And most of them are pretty transparent about, hey, this is AdCloud's AI service. Thanks for your interest. Like they're very upfront to let you know this is AI. This is not a real human calling you, but it's because it's faster and people want fast, they want convenience. And if they need additional support, they just want to know and have the outlet to get to a human. So I think it's important to always make that possible. And we do that in our AI as well. Hey, if you need support, you can reach out here. This is how you can talk to a human if that is your preference. Like for whatever reason, you can't solve the issue you're trying to solve while you're booking. You can reach us directly here, and one of the support team members will help you. But if not, and you want to get this booked in 3 minutes, this is your pathway to that. And so again, I don't think it's going to turn to that. I think we have to find a way, a good marriage, because I think post COVID, like we all went super hard, like everything AI tech, like all of it. And some of that was workforce cutback, and it was a good way to alleviate some of those things. But now I think it's finding that marriage, that balance of, hey, where does AI play a role? Where does the human side play a role? And how can those things coexist and scale together as AI and things get much better? The human side of it may not be as much needed because it continues to learn. So as it continues to learn, there's no real question or answer that it can't give that live human could do. You can teach AI to be empathetic. You can teach it to be human. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see where we get and where we land at a point of this is good enough, where that conversation is there. And like our AI, it understands tone of question, how it's being asked, all of those things, and can answer in response to that, not just like this blocked, hey, yes, no, maybe. Its responses are very intuitive based on how you asked the question or what you asked or what the reasoning behind it was. And I think the better that logic gets, the more we potentially will see this overtake the industry, and maybe the human aspect as far as physical person isn't needed as much. But I'm not sure. I don't know if like the human side will ever go away from the support side. I think that you'll always have to have checks and balances because naturally you could not, but that's a big question mark of robots taking over the world. But yeah, I don't think either is going away anytime soon. Maybe, yeah, I don't know, 5, 7 years from now, we'll revisit that topic.
So if someone is building their AI follow-up now, what should be their priorities? Should they be making it as fast as they can, or should they be making it sound a little bit more human?
Yeah, I think speed is always good. I think you have to decide to take one or the other, or set it up and test both. Send half your traffic one way and send the other half the other way and see what happens. In the perfect world, we would have started out that way, right? But I think if you can divide it up and really track, just make sure you're tracking and understand, hey, if we're going to delay response times, we need to track engagement percentage versus instant, and then conversion, right? Are you getting more engagement but less conversion over here? If so, then you have to weigh, okay, more engagement's good, but maybe your messaging's off. Are you getting less engagement but more conversion on the instant reply? Okay, great. Then that tells you that maybe you need the delayed response, but then maybe there's something in the copy that's not connecting. But then also test it against your platforms, because social may not perform the same way as Google. So realistically, you would divide up and say, okay, we're going to build 2 tiers for social campaigns, and we're going to send social here and we're going to track it. We're going to build 2 tiers for Google and we're going to track it and figure it out. And you may find, and even in our testing, we may still find, because we're still testing in small sprints, that instant reply is really good for Google. And so we may run Google that way. And then we might find that social is better for non-instant reply with a 2-minute delay. And we'll run it that way. And we will divide it and split and run it that way. We don't have to run one flat across every platform, because every platform has a consumer that has a very different mindset in the moment that they are completing a form or engaging with your brand. And I think that's really important, especially if you're getting into TikTok marketing, things of that nature, where I think that the attention span, like in TikTok marketing, is even far less than Instagram, which I don't even know how it's possible. But like that's another area where you really have to test and think through. Because to be honest, I don't think that your marketing strategy that works on Instagram and social, and especially Google, will work on TikTok. I think it's vastly different. Some of the consumers that are on Instagram, but they're just in a very different mindset. And TikTok is just like rapid fire. And I think that's how you're mentally thinking. And so you really have to figure out a way to catch their attention rapidly and then slow it down a little bit. They don't get attached to anything. But when they latch on something, it's like it, right? Like, oh, cool show. Now I'm going to binge the whole thing. And then I'm out. But everything else is just like going through the motions. And I think TikTok has created a little bit of that insanity. And so that's a whole nother world. But I think dividing it up and just trying not to go to market and say, okay, every platform is going to have this same specific outcome and test and whatever. Really think about who the consumer is, what their workflow is up until that point of like how they're getting to your experience or form or whatever that is, and start to piece together what makes sense. But you should individualize and run these tests across every platform to really understand how it performs well and which one you should keep running. And maybe it should be different because we run vastly different things from Google to social because of the intent profile that consumers come with on Google. They don't need as much education and walkthroughs and hand holding. They're a little bit closer to the end of the funnel. So test a lot, test a little bit more, and then just make sure you're tracking it. If you walk in every day, you're not trying to break something, you're probably missing a lot of opportunities. And you should really be trying to break your own funnels and figure out how to get that extra 1% instead of just being okay with the status quo and what's good today, because that'll ultimately it fade away in 6 months and you'll be trying to figure it out again anyway. So if you just keep testing, you'll always stay ahead of the curve as well. Here's what it comes down to. Being fast gets you seen, but sounding human gets you booked. AI isn't necessarily the problem, but lazy automation is. If your lead follow-up feels cold, canned, or too slick, it won't convert no matter how fast it lands. So yes, speed matters, but tone matters too, and timing matters. If you're building AI flows right now, I would stop obsessing over milliseconds and build a follow-up that feels real, builds trust, and actually moves people through the journey. Thanks for listening to the Growth Hack Franchise Marketing Unleashed. If this got you thinking, follow the show, leave a review, and send it to someone automating themselves into irrelevance.